Welcome back to Tackle the Numbers, the channel that appreciates the fact that we've finally reached the end of the preseason. My name is Alistair Poole. In case you didn't already know, this video also exists as a podcast. If you'd rather listen than watch, follow the link in the video description. After several weeks of bad picks, my model finally had a good week again. Predictions correlated 17% with the scores this week, which is better than average. Not enough so to fix the last few weeks of chaos, but it's still an improvement. In the first match this weekend, we saw the biggest ever margin in MLR history. Toronto slaughtered the Seawolves 52-7, an insane 45-point margin. The model, which really didn't know what to think of these two teams, had this as a toss-up. Still, refusing to make a decision means that this doesn't count as an upset. This match was probably closer than the scores suggested, but the model doesn't take that into account, at least not yet. So for Seattle, this really wrecked their rating. They dropped to -5 points on attack and 37.4 points on defense, both of which are pretty bad. Overall, that puts them at -7.1 points below average. Frankly, I don't really see where their redemption is going to come from either. This team is a mess right now. Toronto, meanwhile, bounced back from the beatdown that LA put on them last weekend. This team has been up and down in the ratings every week. Right now, they are above water at a 1.2 point combined margin, with an attack of 1 point and a defensive baseline of 24.7 points, both of which are slightly above average. But I'm not sure what this team really is yet. One week, they are cutting defenses to pieces. The next week, they're struggling to score. For me, the jury is still out. Next up was New England visiting NOLA for a naval battle on the wettest pitch that MLR has seen in a long time. NOLA was expected to take it by 2, 24-22, and in reality, they took it by 1, 30-29. Overall, that's pretty close for my model. This match was a slight knock for the Free Jacks. Their combined margin is now 0.8, and that's pretty much where they've been since the LA blowout. They're a team that is no longer in the offseason, and they seem to have settled as a team average in basically every regard. NOLA has also settled down after a crazy start. This match barely touched their overall rating, which is 2.7 points. But we did see them improve a bit on attack to 6.2 points, and get slightly worse on defense to 23.8 points. But we definitely know what this team is now. Good on attack, decent on defense, and the third best in the league unless someone else really figures themselves out. One of the two upsets this week was San Diego taking down the Warriors. Utah had been expected to take it by 4, 27-23, but it was San Diego that pulled it out in a squeaker, 31-29. This one was close, and it was so much fun to watch. San Diego did see a boost from this. Mostly, it was on attack, where they went up a fraction to 0.6, while on defense they're still a subpar 30.4. That puts them at a -2 point combined margin. I don't know if this team has quite found their level yet, but we for sure won't see the return of San Diego of old. Utah, meanwhile, has definitely found their natural level. They are a consistently average team, and this match barely moved them. They are at 0.8 overall, with an average attack of 0.6 and an average defense of 25.4. They might be the ultimate benchmark team this season, given how stable their rating has been. After that was a match that felt like a win for Houston, even though they lost 48-33 to LA. Like Toronto before them, they made this LA team look mortal. After having no real scoring potential for weeks, they were actually leading for parts of the second half. It was also a win for my model, with the predicted 10-point margin being only 2 points off of the actual margin, which was 12 points. For LA, this is the first time we've seen them move downwards in the ratings. Their attack remains a stellar 18 points, but their defense got shown up and has corrected to a very average 26.9. Overall, that still puts them at 5.1 points overall, and that is very, very good, but it's no longer best ever good. Houston, meanwhile, sank like a stone. Despite the good feelings of this match, they still gave up 48 points, and that tanked their defensive baseline to 34.7. They also didn't get a lot of credit on attack, which stayed level at minus 6.6, and that gives them a very low combined margin of minus 5.9. The only reason they are not the worst in the league is because Seattle got blown out by more. Still, it seems like there are reasons for optimism for Houston. They seem to be figuring it out a bit in these last few weeks, and I don't think this team has fully settled down yet. Another match that went pretty much as predicted was Atlanta at Austin. Austin was expected to win by 4, 22-15, but they actually won by 2, 17-15. This is one of my favorite matches of the weekend because I guess I like hard defense-heavy matches. This match was an improvement for Rugby ATL. Their trend of worsening attack continued as it dropped to minus 3 points, but it was outweighed by gains in defense, which is now at a nice 21.8. Overall, they're a couple points above average. This is right where we figured they'd be before the season. Good on defense, not good on attack, and overall better than average. Austin sank a little after this match, despite winning. Their defensive baseline is still a fantastic 15.6 points, but their attacking average continues to drop. They are now a pretty concerning minus 7.2 on attack. Because the model really favors defense, they're still considered a very good team. They have a combined margin of 4.7 points, but it's still hard to sustain that if they continue to be this incapable of scoring. The second upset of the week was barely an upset. Old Glory fell to Rugby United New York, 38-34, despite being expected to win by 1, 27-26. My model gave Old Glory just a 51% chance to win, so this upset isn't really surprising. And this match was really close. The difference was just a couple of missed conversions. Giving up 38 points, though, did not do any favors for Old Glory's ratings. Their attack hasn't wavered at 3.2 points, but their defense is now officially bad at 31.1. Their combined margin is now minus 3, a sharp drop for a team that started the season hot. But they are a textbook case of why depth matters. A couple of injuries to experienced players and suddenly they lose all of their momentum. This is another team that hasn't fully settled, though, so it'll be interesting to see where they end up. This match also wasn't great for New York in the ratings. They continue to be decent on attack at 2.4 points, but their defense is not great at 30 points. That leaves them at minus 1.5 points overall. Their attack looks potent, so perhaps they defy history and win shootouts going forward, but my model suggests that they're likely to lose shootouts instead. The rankings stayed mostly stable this week, as you'd expect given the lack of upsets. LA, Austin, NOLA are still your top 3. Behind them are Atlanta, who jumped 2 spots, and Toronto, who jumped 6 spots. And that pushed New England and Utah down a couple of spots to 6 and 7. In 8th is still Rooney, followed by San Diego, who gained a spot. Finally, we have Old Glory, who dropped 3 spots to 10th, Houston, who dropped 2 spots to 11th, and Seattle, who held on to their last place spot despite a good attempt by Houston to steal it. The matches this weekend will start with NOLA visiting Atlanta. It's a good rivalry and it should be a good match. NOLA is expected to take it, but only by 1 point, 23-22. That's just a 52% chance to win for the gold. This conference matchup could end up being a tiebreaker later on, so both teams are really going to want to win it. The second matchup will be another rivalry, this one brand new, as San Diego visits LA. Unsurprisingly, LA is expected to come out by a mile, 30-23. That's a 7-point margin and a 70% chance to win. LA is likely to drop one this year, but I don't know if this San Diego team, who just barely slipped through some of their matches, will be the ones to do it. Then we have another 7-point margin as Houston visits Utah. The Warriors are chalked to take it 29-22 with a 68% chance to win. However, I'm liking Houston to cover this one. They looked much improved against LA, and their stats are suffering a bit from the recency bias of that blowout. I wouldn't take them to win, but 7 points is a lot to cover. After that is the Patriot Bowl, the Free Jacks visiting Old Glory. New England is expected to take victory by 4, 28-24. That's a 61% chance to win. Both teams are coming off of frustratingly close losses, so both are really going to want this win. An interesting twist for this match is that Old Glory just signed a couple of experienced backs to cover for their injured players. I don't know if I'd take them to win because of it, but this does make me think they'll cover the spread. Another somewhat close match will be Toronto at New York. Both teams are riding high off of victories, so we will see who extends their win streak. The model is calling it for Toronto by 2, 26-24, which is a 58% chance to win. A win for Rooney would solidify their lead in the playoff race, while a win for Toronto could have them contending for the top of the East in my rankings. Finally, we have Seattle heading to Austin. This match has been given the largest spread of the season, 12 points in favor of Austin, who are expected to win 29-17. That's an 80% chance of victory. I feel like I have to pick Seattle to cover this, though. Not because I have any faith in Seattle. I don't. But I don't know if Austin will even score 12 points, much less win by 12 points. Given the lopsided matches this week, there's a 90% chance that my model at least breaks even. Most likely, we'll see 1 to 3 upsets. Starting this week, I am also going to give updates on the playoff odds. I wanted to wait until the season was at least a little bit settled down before I started this. The West is pretty predictable. There's a clear hierarchy, and it perfectly matches my rankings. LA is on top, followed by Austin. Utah is a contender, while San Diego has an outside chance, and Houston and Seattle have just 4% and 3% chances respectively to make the playoffs. In the East, however, things are completely open. Rooney has the best shot, basically 50-50, mostly because with 3 wins, they have a good head start. They're followed by NOLA, New England, Toronto, and Atlanta, all of whom have reasonable chances to get into the playoffs. Only Old Glory is really on the outside, but even they have an 11% chance, which isn't totally unlikely. Well, that's all for me this week. Remember, if you want to pick against my numbers, you can do so over at tacklethenumber.gloriousrugby.com. You can also check out all of my graphs and charts on the new stats page. If you have questions or comments for the show, you can reach me at tacklethenumbers@gloriousrugby.com. Till next time, folks.